Hello and welcome. My name is Ed Carpenter with Carpenter Insurance, and by now most of you know who I am. And the reason for this infomercial is to teach you all about auto insurance. And the reason I need to spend some time with you about auto insurance is because the past few months I've been saving thousands of customers with homeowners insurance, and when they come down and sit down and they realize how much they can save compared to the prices their captive agents have been given in the last 15, 20 years, their next comment is, Ed, can you also do auto insurance? I'm thinking, well, yeah. And I respond to them by saying, well, okay, let me give you a quote. What are you currently carrying? And 90% of the time, they usually say one of these three things. One is they look at me and they say, I don't know. Or they say, well, I just have the minimum. Or, well, I got full coverage. But what's astounding to me is that they have no idea what they're paying for these last 20 years. So I'm going to spend some time, and by the time this infomercial is done, you'll be able to go into your agency or even this one and be able to have enough arsenal and understanding to get what you're paying for. Because you got to figure you're spending about $1,500 a year in auto insurance, and that's an average family. And that works out to, $15,000 every 10 years, 20 years. That's some of you have been with the same agency, you paid 30 grand, and yet no knowledge of what you're spending this money for. So let's go through this starting from the top. When you're sitting down and you say, Ed, I'd like to have a quote on auto insurance, what we kind of dream we would hear back from you is like, well, okay, I'm currently carrying 10-20-10 with a $500 deductible. And what that means is the terminology 10-20-10, the first two numbers deals with bodily injury. So the first 10 is always in thousands, so the 10 would be in 10,000, 20, 20,000. And then the last number, which I use as an example, is a 10 of 10,000, is property damage. So let's break that down a little bit more. What does that mean? What we're dealing with here, and what I tell most people is you got to think about this is protecting somebody else that has nothing to do with you. And the reason you want to protect somebody else, because if you don't and they get injured, they're going to come back and take all your stuff, which you don't want. So that's why we got numbers like 10,000, 20,000. That's dealing with bodily injury. And then we can do like 25, 50, or 100, 300, numbers like that. So what does that kind of protect you from? Let's say you get in an accident and it's your fault and you hurt somebody. They go to the doctor. Now there's this thing called PIP, but we'll get back to later because it might be falling away soon. But let's just talk about the bodily injury right now. They'll pay it, or your insurance company will protect that person you injured up to $10,000 for one person. The second number, the 20 that we're using as an example, or 20,000, that's the max they'll protect for everybody in the car. So if you got like 5 people in the car and they all get hurt, the max is going to be 20 grand. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if one person has 15,000 in damages to their body, they'll only pay 10 for the one and a max of 20 for everybody in it. And that's how those numbers work on the bodily injury of 10, 20. The last number, the 10, which is $10,000 for property damage, is what your insurance company will pay to fix the car that you hit and wrecked. Now remember, it's got nothing to do with your car or the people in your car or you. This is somebody else that you might run into. Now, this happens really fast, especially with the car damage, because for example, I was coming over the bridge not too long ago, the storm rain hits, and I'm sitting on the Navarre Bridge, somebody behind me is on the Navarre Bridge, and all of a sudden, wham, we get smacked into. It was a 3-car pileup, so we had to pull over, 2 hours of dealing with, the police and the ambulance and everything. But you got to understand, if you're carrying a number like 10, 20, 10, and you only got 10,000 on a car damage, luckily ours wasn't that bad, but the other one was pretty bad. I mean, that adds up real fast because the third person in the row that hit us 3, they were responsible for the whole enchilada. Now, luckily, nobody was hurt. But still, you got to figure, if it gets over that 10 grand, they're going to get their lawyers to come after you and say, hey, we want our car fixed. And what I hear a lot, especially with the auto thing, is that most people, they just want to drive their car. They don't want to deal with it. Just let me drive my car. Well, you're paying the money. Going from, the state minimum right now is like 0,010, plus you got to carry your PIP. That all might change again. But most people say, all right, give me the minimum, which would be 10, 20, 10. And that's for people, I can understand they're young, they don't have, very much money, and they don't really have very many assets or stuff they think people can come and take. So they don't really care too much about protecting other people. It's just the way people are. It's just life, really. But once you get a little older and you get married and maybe have your first kid, you start realizing, hey, I got some stuff now and I got to protect it. So what do? Is they come in and they say, Ed, what do you think I should carry now? Now, I'm going to say these are just kind of generalities because, I don't want to be sued or anything. But the next step is usually a number like 25, 50, 25. That's when you got something, you're starting to get a little more mature in your thinking and you realize, hey, if I run into a Mercedes, 10 grand is gone in a second. So that would be the next step of the 25, 50, 25, which works out to be, $25,000 to fix up one person that you might hurt, 50 max for everybody you might hurt, outside of your car, or 25,000 for the automobile. And as you know, most cars nowadays cost 35 grand. And you can move these things around a little bit. But then when the next phase I notice, and this is just to help you out so you can see where you're at, is that you're a little bit older now and you have maybe a home and maybe some CDs or stocks or stuff like that, and you realize, hey, if I hurt somebody, somebody's going to come in and take all this stuff away from me. So then you come down and you say, well, what do you think we should carry now? And the next step would be like 100, 300, 100 with the numbers. I'm sure you can figure out times it by 1,000 now. The max I recommend is 250, 500, 250. And the reason for that is some companies I offer, you can get more than that, but it's a lot less expensive if you go and buy something called an umbrella. An umbrella picks up from the 250, 500 mark and goes up to $1 million. And that usually runs, around $400 a year, but that gives you $1 million protection. But it starts at 250 and goes up to $1 million. You don't need to go and say, well, I just saw my auto insurance, raise that up to 500, $1 million, because what's great about an umbrella is not only does it cover your autos, but it covers everything else you might have, like your home or your rental units or something like that. So when it comes to autos, 250, 500, 250 is probably the most you really need to carry.